Hi, my name is Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing the It Isn't That Bad tag. This was an original tag created by Melinda from A Web of Stories, and Melinda kindly tagged me to do this. And I'll link Melinda's channel down below. If you are not aware of her, you should absolutely go check her out because she has so much great content. I feel like whatever type of booktube video you like to watch, Melinda will have something for you. So she does wrap-ups, TBRs, tags, discussion videos, loads of great stuff. So this is the It Isn't That Bad book tag. So there are a lot of things we are told we shouldn't do as readers, and honestly those things really aren't that bad. Question 1 is, do you dog ear your books? So no, I don't. I use bookmarks when I read my books, and I think I guess largely that comes down to the fact that a lot of my reading comes from the library, and previously as a child most of my reading came from the library, and so obviously when you read library books it's bad form to dog ear them. So it's just something it's never really occurred to me to do that. I'm not particularly excuse me, I'm not particularly sort of particular about keeping my books pristine or anything like that. But I wouldn't dog ear them, I would use a bookmark. And then question number 2, along the same lines, is do you annotate your books? And again, no. I have seen, there was one time, so sometimes when you get library books out, someone will have, might have marked if there's like typos or grammatical errors or whatever. But one time I got a book out of the library a few years ago, and someone hadn't just marked sort of typos, they'd actually like edited the word choices of the author. So one of the examples I remember, and I can't remember which way round it was, they crossed out the word ground and written floor instead, or it could have been that they crossed out floor and written ground. I can't remember which way round it was, but there was 2 or 3 examples of that where, like, I don't think it was an error that the author had done, but clearly this reader thought that they had a better word choice for that sentence. I thought that was really weird for someone to do that in a library book. So no, the only time I've annotated books has been if I've had to read them for study, like at school or at university. But other than that, I've never annotated a book. I mean, I probably should do, or at least keep better notes, particularly when I read them for book clubs, because I have the worst memory ever. And sometimes when I'm in the book club and other people are talking about the book and they'll talk about sort of particular plot points and things, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And I swear sometimes people must think that she's messing, like she has not read this book because she looks really surprised by the stuff that we're talking about. But I just have the worst memory, so I probably should annotate more, but no, I don't. I think I'm just lazy, to be honest. I can't be bothered. Question 3 is, do you roll covers or break spines when you read? So I don't, as I say, I don't particularly try to keep my books in pristine condition, but I guess I'm sort of used to, because so much of my reading comes from the library, I am used to taking good care of the books that I read. But I don't have an issue with the spine breaking. I wouldn't specifically break it on purpose to then make it easier to read, but if it does break, that's fine. And in terms of rolling covers, I guess I do. It's just, is there an, let me see. So I might do, to be honest, this is a bad example because this one feels like, this is second hand and it's got bits underlined. This one feels like it might break if I roll the covers back. But there are, yeah, if a paperback is one that feels comfortable to roll the cover, that one doesn't either, then I would do. But yeah, I wouldn't do it if it was going to like mess the book up, particularly if it was a library book. 4 is, do you listen to something while you read? So sometimes yes, sometimes no. I can read while a lot of stuff is going on around me, and I think that's probably from when I was a child. I would read any spare moment I had. So I would read, like sitting in the living room, the telly would be on, people would be having a conversation around me and I'd be reading my book. So I can read when stuff's going on around me. I often read if like the telly's on, if it's not something I'm watching, but I'll sit on the couch and read. I am home alone this weekend, and I have been reading earlier today, and I was just reading in silence on the couch with the cat next to me. So probably if it was down to me, I would probably read in silence, just because I wouldn't necessarily seek out music or anything as a background. Occasionally, if I've had too much silence, I might put on like an ASMR room, you know, like something like a cozy coffee shop, or like autumnal or like rain noises or something like that. But other than that, yeah, I would tend to just like read in silence if there's nothing else going on around me. One thing that does annoy me, and it was annoying me this morning, so I've moved it now, is a clock. So if I can hear a ticking clock, it drives me crazy. I absolutely can't stand it. If it was down to me, if I lived by myself, I would not have a ticking clock in the house. We do have one on the mantelpiece, which I have now moved to the kitchen because it was really winding me up this morning. Next question, I'm reading these from my phone. So question 5 is, do you read in the bathroom? And question 6 is, do you read in water, such as in the bathtub or pool, etc.? So because we have those 2 separate questions, I'm guessing do you read in the bathroom means do you read on the loo? I occasionally do that because I do use any spare minute to read a book. So yes, that is a confession. And question 6, do you read in water? So I read in the bath, yeah, quite frequently. Most of the time I read in the bath. I always have done, really. Even library books, which I know may be living on the edge. I think I've only dropped a book in the bath once when I was a child. I don't think it was a library book, but that hasn't put me off. But touch wood, you know, I'm in my 40s now, and I've had a lot of baths while reading a lot of books. I'll probably drop a book like tomorrow in the bath now, but I managed to keep them dry. Question 7 is, do you DNF? So if you've been a subscriber of my channel for any length of time, you will know that I absolutely do DNF quite a lot. And I've spoke about this before. It was only really when I joined BookTube that I realised how prolific a DNFer I am compared to a lot of people. I DNF about 1/3 of the books that I pick up. And yeah, I've always been very happy to DNF. It's not something I've ever sort of agonised over. I don't really understand people who don't DNF. Those people kind of baffle me, because I can't quite comprehend sort of forcing myself to read a book if I'm not enjoying it. So reasons I would DNF. So the main reason is usually because I'm just not feeling inclined to pick the book up again. For whatever reason, it's not for me. Occasionally I'll DNF because there might be something that I personally find offensive or that I just don't like in the book. That doesn't happen that often. Another quite common reason is if the writing style just isn't for me, I will DNF. But I feel like it's interesting because I think people who say they don't DNF, I've heard say that they have a good understanding of their reading tastes. And I think I have a good understanding of my reading tastes, but I still DNF a lot. I think part of that is because I am such a big library user, so I will hear about a book. I don't need to know very much about it to think, oh yeah, I'm interested. If the library has it, I'll just get it out and give it a go. So I've not really gone into much depth in discovering whether or not it's definitely to my taste or not. Quite often, I think with writing style, unless you've read from the author before, it's difficult to know what their writing style is going to be like and if that's going to be something that I will get on with or not. But even within that, I've DNF'd plenty of books by authors who I have read other books from and really enjoyed. So I don't know if I'm just like weird, but so I don't know what, because I feel like I do know my taste well, But for whatever reason, sometimes a book just doesn't work for me. And sometimes when I DNF a book, it is because I'm not in the mood for it. So for example, a recent example is The Idiot by Elif Batterman, I think is the author, which is a book I'm really interested in reading. But when I got out of the library recently, I read a few pages and I was like, do you know what, I'm just not in the mood for it. So I'm DNFing it for now. I'll come back to it later. I don't often come back to books I DNF, but a good example of where I did do that was Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason, which I DNF'd a few years ago when it was longlisted for the Women's Prize, and then it made the shortlist, so I gave it another go and I actually really enjoyed it, and it's a book that I would happily reread again. So it does happen that I revisit DNFs and get on well with them. Another thing people say is that if you DNF a book, how do you know it's not, if you carried on reading, it might have actually turned out to be a book that you really enjoy. And I'm sure there'll be a certain amount of books that I've DNF'd where had I pushed through and continued to the end, maybe I would have really enjoyed them. But at the same time, I'm sure there's a more so where that wouldn't have happened. That makes sense. So for me, it's just not worth it. I will just happily DNF. Let's see, question 8 is, do you ever read ahead or skip to the end of a book? So not normally. The only time when I would is if I've DNF'd the book, and in particular if it's like a murder mystery or something like that where I want to know what the solution is. I'll either Google it to find out, or I will read the end of the book to find out the solution. But if it's a book that I'm carrying on reading, no, I can't really understand why you would skip to the end or skip ahead. If I'm thinking about DNFing, I occasionally I'll just sort of flick through to get an idea of the vibe of the rest of the book, but not really read bits ahead. And I'll also look on Storygrathic reviews to sway me one way or the other. Question 9 is, are you book polygamous, i.e. do you read more than one book at a time? So no, I usually only read one book at a time. That's what I always have done, really. I think partly because I have a really bad memory, so if I don't pick up a book for a few days and then go back to it, I will have forgotten what was going on, who the characters are, etc. I need to feel immersed in a book and just be with that one book before I move on to the next one, usually. There are some exceptions. So if I read non-fiction, which doesn't happen that often, but if I do read non-fiction, I can have a non-fiction and a fiction on the go at the same time. And the other exception is short story collections. So I know I've got, I think, 3 short story collections that I'm in the middle of at the moment. One I've been in the middle of for probably a year. It's here. This massive locked room short story collection. Where am I? I'm that far through, so maybe a quarter of the way through. So yeah, I have a few short story collections on the go. Usually I'll do that with collections that contain stories from a variety of authors. If it's a short story collection just by one author that's been published as a collection, I would usually try to read that maybe not necessarily in one go, but like in a couple of goes, so like over the course of maybe a month, just to get the cohesiveness of the collection. But other than that, novel wise, usually one book at a time. Another exception, actually, to be fair, is recently I've kind of been getting into audiobooks, mainly because I've been getting these headaches. So yeah, there have been times when I've had an audiobook on the go, the same as a physical book, but it's not really my preference. And then question 10 is, do you own more books than bookshelf space? So yes, obviously I do. And I think it's there's a phrase for it, isn't there? What is it? I can't remember. But I feel like however many bookshelves I have, I'm always going to have more books than bookshelf space, because however much I have, I'm just going to fill that space and buy more books and not have enough space. So yeah, I don't have enough bookshelf space. We moved house last year, and I think we had one more extra bookshelf in our last house because it was a bit bigger. So here I've got these two bookshelves behind me. There's a bookshelf, like a small bookshelf unit over there on the other side of this mantelpiece. One layer is got board games on, and then the other layer has got books that I've read. Most of them over there I think are my Maeve Binchy collections, because I own all of Maeve Binchy's books. So yeah, they're over there. Then upstairs there is a big bookshelf, but that's mostly got DVDs on and my girlfriend's books. So these are my sort of main bookshelves. So what you can see is sort of TBR. So this tall one here is all TBR, and then this one is double stacked. The front layer is TBR. The ones at the back are books that I've read, and the very bottom shelf as well of books that I've read. And I do have bits of space on these shelves, but the issue is really like when I get library books out, I don't have space for them. So like I've got library books here, 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 the back there as well, and a pile like of library books here that I've just picked up today that I don't know where they're going to go. I've got like, there's a few little books here that I need to like pass on to other people or get rid of. There's books over there that have been there for months that need to go to the charity shop. So there is piles of books everywhere, and I tend to stack them in front of the telly, and then my girlfriend understandably doesn't like that. So I was thinking about getting like a little book cart, you know, like people have, and I thought maybe it would fit like sort of here, the telly's just here, maybe here or here. Well, I don't know. I feel like even if I get a book cart, I'll probably just fill it to overflow and still need more space. So maybe I should just try and like read some books off my TBR to make space so I can have like a full shelf for library books, maybe. I don't know, it's a dilemma. I think there's one more bonus question. Oh yeah, bonus question is, do you ever take a book without leaving a book at a little free library? So I've never seen a little free library in real life, ever. So no. The closest thing is probably, you know, where you have like a little charity book table in like the supermarket by the tills, that sort of thing. So yeah, I will take a book without leaving a book, because I'll leave like a little bit of money for it, which is fine. But yeah, I donate a lot of books to charity, and yeah, I like using charity shops to buy books as well. But no, I've never seen a little free library in real life, which makes me kind of sad. I like watching like videos from booktubers, largely in the US, who like do little free library tours and stuff because it looks dead cute. But no, I've never seen one in real life, sadly. And so finally I need to tag some people. So I did think about this beforehand, which I don't normally do. I'm going to tag two people. I'm going to tag Jay from My Quarter Life Crisis, and I'm going to tag Emily from Novelle Novels. Both great channels, check them out if you haven't already. No pressure, but if you'd like to do this tag, then yeah, you are tagged. Anyone else who wants to do it, consider yourself tagged. And thank you to Melinda for tagging me. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on any of these questions, and I will speak to you again very soon. Bye.